Hey, I'm Jonathan Koeppel, the former St. Tammany Parish school teacher, and I'm with Pamela Ferguson, school board candidate for District 2. We're going to talk about why she's running, what she brings to the table, and just let her share her views, her thoughts, and let you get to know her a little more. Hello, Pamela.
Hi, Jonathan.
Good morning.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad you came. So, I'm going to start this thing off by asking you, why did you decide to run for school board?
I decided to run because of what's happening all around the country. At some point, I just couldn't sit back and not do anything at all. We got to get our kids back to the basics. Uh, Kids are not reading soon enough. They should be reading at least at grade level by the time they finish second grade. I was glad that our legislature is noticing that and they're trying to put some things in place to help us with that. But reading, math, science, American history, not necessarily social studies, um, we've got to get back to the basics.
I like that you brought up American history because I was at the Social Studies Standards Review Committee meeting in Baton Rouge,
Mhm.
and they were going over changing the social studies standards, which it's fine every once in a while, change things up, add some new content, maybe take away some content. But something that struck me as odd was they were removing patriotic songs from, I want to say it was first grade, where kids used to learn maybe the Star Spangled Banner or America
Mhm.
the Beautiful, and that was going to be wiped out completely. What are your thoughts on taking away that sort of thing from those elementary school age children?
Jonathan, I am a very strong patriot. I'm a very strong conservative, and I believe that we should be saying the pledge. Kids should be learning these patriotic songs. We should be teaching our kids that this is a great country and they should be doing what they can to make it greater.
Awesome. Well, I know last night there was a meeting that we both attended, and it was related to finance and how it's handled and how it's audited and all sorts of different things. So, just in brief, or as deep as you want to go into it, I wanted to get your thoughts on the financial aspect of the St. Tammany Parish School Board, specifically around the topic of having an audit from an outside source, a third party that's not directly working with the superintendent.
Yes, I think that's extremely important. I would like to see this auditor report directly to the school board and not necessarily to the superintendent. Mr. Jabbia is a great guy, and I know he's trying to do the right thing. He came in when COVID started, so I know he's kind of had a tough road, but I think that the board itself needs to be a little bit more detailed oriented when this budget is concerned. It's a big budget. And if we're not really scrutinizing everything, I think we're not doing our jobs.
Yeah. Well, that's a big topic for the community. A lot of people want to know what's going on with the money. You did say Javi is a great guy. We will see. He did oversee me getting fired for free speech and speaking out against gender ideology and
Yes.
CRT and the mask mandates. So I don't know what other people think about that. I don't know if you know the whole story, but it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. I'm actually suing him over it. Uh,
Mhm.
but that's another topic. I just wanted to throw
Right.
that in for the listeners. If you're
Okay.
watching, please share, comment, and like. We want to get as many people watching this as possible so people can know what Pamela has to say about why she's running for school board. So there's another issue very important to parents, very important to students. When I was a teacher, I had kids come up to me. They were concerned that they would have to share the locker rooms and the bathrooms with students of the opposite sex. There were some girls that said, Mr. Koeppel, am I going to have to share the locker room with a boy if he thinks he's trans? I said, listen, I have no clue, but you need to talk with your parents and make sure that they raise hell over this because anything can happen. So, what are your thoughts on keeping two gender bathrooms, male and female bathrooms, and and boys and girls sharing locker rooms in the schools, in the public school system. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I believe that we should have girls and boys bathrooms. I do not believe that they should be sharing locker rooms at all. Even in public, much less in schools, we should not be doing this kind of thing. Um, there are only males and females. Whether or not a person feels like they belong as something else, that is strictly a personal issue that should not necessarily be shared in school. So, yeah, girls and boys bathrooms for sure. As a matter of fact, if we get federal funds that determine that we have to have this, then I don't want the federal funds. I would easily say, no, I don't want that.
That's a very strong answer. Very strong answer on that. Yeah. I also believe there's only two genders as well. Most of the community agrees with that. It's an interesting thing taking place in our society right now. It's actually a reality because Ascension Parish, one of the parishes just announced a homecoming queen that's actually a male. And so I feel my heart goes out to all the girls that really wanted to be homecoming queen, but they never stood a chance because a boy actually took that position. I don't want to see our schools starting to disenfranchise females, whether it's in sports, homecoming queen, you name it. I think the girls need their fair chance. That's what they've, women used to not have their own sports.
Right.
And we're seeing things being taken over by men in women's
Yes.
sports. So it's good to hear your strong stance on gender in that particular issue. So there's another thing, politics in the classroom. When I used to work in the public schools, one of the things that I brought up was the fact that other teachers were using their class time to share their political views instead of teach. And I'm hearing it from the kids. They'd come out of one class and they say, Miss So-and-so was really talking about how great communism was and why we should do this. And then I had these other kids, they said, I didn't know how racist I was as a white person for just existing. And I didn't know about white privilege. And I'm thinking to myself, why are teachers talking about these political issues in their classrooms? And when President Joe Biden won the election and they had the inauguration, there was an email sent out that said teachers are not supposed to play the inauguration in class unless it's specific, like I think civics, maybe social studies was allowed to do it. But we had science teachers, math teachers, history teachers. They took 2 days of class time to play the inauguration and celebrate the Biden victory to kids. So what are your thoughts on teachers sharing their political views and pushing their political views in the classroom?
It does not belong in school at all. I'm not sure how to stop that. I guess you just have to audit classrooms.
That's interesting.
We can tell them that they're not supposed to do it and have children let us know about it. So maybe we can stop it that way, but it's certainly not appropriate. There's not enough time in school right now to make sure kids are reading and doing math and science. I mean, if you look at the United States as a whole, our ranking, like for math and science, we should be number 1 or in the top 5, and we're not. It's terrible.
I'm going to pull up this comment that Armand just wrote. I have kids that go to North Shore High that used to work for me. They do not know basic math skills as seniors. How can kids end up as seniors in high school without being able to know basic math and English skill? And I think we just answered that question because there's a lot of teachers use their class time for other things that aren't related to the course material. And as far as auditing the classroom, I would love to see that happen. And I just remember as a teacher, I felt as a new teacher, I was always worried, like, is somebody going to come in my classroom? Am I doing the right thing? So I always was on my toes and on my feet with work. But some people that have been in the system for many years, they know how it goes. Nobody's coming in the classroom. There's no accountability. And when people do come to pay a visit, it's planned. You know about it. So it's not random. And then when
Right.
kids report to the administration, it's almost written off as other kids making it up. This isn't real. And there's not really an investigation because they already tell teachers you're not allowed to share your political views in class. They already say that. They said you can't share the inauguration in your biology class, but yet teachers still did it. I mean, it's so they're definitely. I think that's a very interesting thing you said. Audit the classrooms as well. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on politics in the classroom. I would love to hear your take on. So I know you have a background in commercial. Can you tell me what it was again?
I do have a real estate license, and I am an industrial property manager.
Industrial property manager.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 99% of what I manage is warehouse space. But I do have other experience in regular commercial, office, retail, even residential property management. I have about 30 years experience.
So I would love to, curious, if you've ever thought about this, we have our own maintenance department in the St. Tammany Parish school board system. It's its own unit within the school board system. I've heard from the maintenance people themselves, they say they're overworked. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough of them to fix things on the campuses. And then you hear from teachers and people that work at the schools and say that they never see maintenance. Sometimes I've seen maintenance in parking lots at restaurants during lunch. And I thought about this. I said, well, if they all take 10 minutes to drive to the restaurant and 10 minutes back, that's 20 minutes per person. Let's say there's 600 people doing this a day. That's a lot of time wasted. I don't know if the time is being used as efficiently as it could. I don't know if we're just understaffed. I don't know what's going on with maintenance, to be honest. I really have no clue. But I know that the schools are not in tip-top shape. That community steps up to clean up. The community steps up to paint. What are your thoughts around maintenance? Because you have experience in this. So what do you think?
Well, I'm actually kind of excited to get started to do something like this, to visit the schools and just walk the property and get a fresh eyes on every property that's in my district and do an assessment and let the whole board know what I think about my schools and what I think is needed, because that kind of stuff has got to get in the budget. We have to have a list of things that are needed and get those things done. I'd love to meet with the maintenance staff. And I agree with where you're going with this. I think that when you have big staffs like this and they've been around for a really long time, they get kind of laxed. Not a lot of motivation. So maybe if we have some new people coming and some new eyes on these properties, maybe it'll help motivate them to get stuff going. But really, it's got to get in the budget so we can afford to do some of these things. I'm also on the St. Tammany Republican Executive Committee. It's the St. Tammany GOP. And one of our members is a parish council, on the parish council, and she mentioned she was getting some phone calls from parents about the condition of some of the classrooms. So I know it's out there. So yeah, I'm kind of anxious to get in there and look at it myself and see where we are with that.
So that's unique because I don't think I remember when I worked in St. Bernard Parish and then my time in St. Tammany Parish, never once did I see a school board member show up on campus. Not once. So I think that's something that's very important because how can you know what's going on unless you show up with your own eyes? I mean, that's an audit. That's a type of audit and assessment.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's very needed. Thank you for sharing that with us. And with you've heard some of the classrooms are in a nasty state. Look, I remember sometimes your classroom gets cleaned, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it's that complicated to hire a cleaning company that will show up every day, do an amazing job, and get it done at a, a very decent cost. I don't know what's going on with all of that, but the schools are pretty dirty. Kids are dirty. Okay, don't get me wrong. Kids can be quite disgusting in the stuff they do. It just doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah.
it's a tough job, but we definitely need to clean up. Now, something that's big for staff, a lot of staff members say that working in the school system, it's toxic. It's not really because they're not getting paid enough or the benefits aren't good enough. Many people just say they hate the environment. The kids get away with anything they want. The behavior is out of control. If you go to the administration with behavior problems, nothing happens. There's no resolve, and they don't feel supported. Teachers are overworked. Bus drivers are overworked and kind of like put off as second-class citizens. The custodians, I don't know that they get the attention or respect they deserve. The lunch and cafeteria workers. So what do you think about the workplace environment, morale, and what are your thoughts around that whole topic?
So the one thing I have looked at is teacher pay and staff pay. It's getting better. I agree that we're not up to where we should be yet, but it is getting better. And, a brand new teacher making $48,000 a year is not chump change. So it's not the money. And I don't think teachers do this for the money or anybody else in the school, any of the staff. They're there for the kids. So it's got to be the morale. And we've got to figure out, I've heard some anecdotal evidence about what's happening, but there's no way for me to know for sure until I start talking to teachers and principals and maybe more parents attending PTA meetings and seeing what their kids are telling them about what's going on. Morale is probably the biggest thing, because a teacher in a classroom, if she's not happy, she's not going to be teaching her kids in a way that is enthusiastic and energizing and engaging. So it's a very important aspect to this. And yeah, I think every school board member needs to visit all their schools and talk to as many teachers as possible. I'm hearing some things teachers are saying that their principals don't support them. That's a big thing.
So I want to get into this because I worked in the system. I know a lot of teachers, and it's kind of the same thing. The teachers are leaving the profession, and it's not because, like you said, it's not really the salary. It's the environment, it's the morale, and it blows my mind that from an administrative standpoint, you see that you need teachers. For example, you have one class that doesn't even have you have so many classes that don't have full-time teachers. They have random substitutes all year long, which is totally unacceptable. And it does a disservice to the community. But from the top, the superintendent, administration, principals, they can't figure out what the problem is. They haven't talked to the teachers. Why are you leaving? What's going on? And put out some sort of report. That's an audit. It's an audit of the classroom. It's an audit of the teacher morale. And this is years. It has been, they act like they have no clue. Well, and there's been no solution. There's been no resolve. So I'd be very eager to know from this, a new school board member, that sort of information, like, hey, we are going to talk to the teachers. We are going to talk with the bus drivers. We're actually going to meet with them to find out what's really going on. And then we're going to fix problems, because for so many years, no problems have really gotten fixed. It's just, to me, as a citizen from the outside, it looks like it's the same thing being done over and over again, expecting different results, which by Einstein's definition of insanity, that is it. And so I just, after last night's meeting and finding out about auditing isn't just about the money, I would want to see an audit of every aspect of the school system, because without doing that, how can anybody fix anything? Like, that's my take on that.
So they did bring up a good point, that there's parents and taxpayers out there that believe the system is bloated and we have too many employees, not enough results. So that is an issue that we're going to have to tackle. I do think that parents and taxpayers need to be educated on what's really going on. I don't think there's enough transparency. I think they should be answering more questions in a public way. Yeah, I think if more parents participated and came to school board meetings, or at least communicated with school board members, we may be able to get more information and try to figure out exactly what to do about this. Because,
Yeah.
when you talk to teachers and they specifically tell you, my principal is not supporting me, well, we have to address that. And you know exactly where to go, exactly who to talk to. And what do you do about that? I guess, the details will determine that.
Most of the time, nothing will happen. And then the teachers are scared because you bring up real issues and then you get reprimanded or you get harassed or bullied. And what I'm seeing, and this happens in corporations, people are scared to lose their jobs, so they never interact with management. And you have these structures that are up and down where it's very delegated authority, and you have to go through so many different chains of commands. But I feel it might be a good idea to have more of a horizontal type access to leadership, because parents they're not having access to the school board. They're not having, or they do, and the school board just ignores them. You hear that a lot. And teachers really they're just so scared to bring anything up to the principals. And I think when you have a bad manager who's creating a toxic or facilitating a toxic environment, facilitating bad results, in the private sector, that manager gets fired. But in the school system, we see principals, teachers, administrators stay for a lifetime without really improving anything. So I don't know your thoughts on, if somebody's performing bad, should they be up for a review? Should they be up for coaching?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Nobody gets a pass in life. And especially schools. I mean, this is where we send all of our kids of the community. And yeah, they should be held responsible for their behavior, just like we try to hold our kids responsible for theirs. Their performance should be reviewed. Absolutely. And if they're having a problem, especially then, I'm not for just giving teachers a pass and letting them work a lifetime if they're bad teachers.
Yeah.
I think they have to go do something else.
And the last thing I want to get your take on is medical freedom, because our entire country was put into a state of shutdown not long ago. And it turned out that the lockdowns and the shutdowns and the things that the government did were not actually that efficient. They didn't really do anything to stop the spread and all sorts of stuff. But the schools specifically, when the rules came down, the local governments, because it's America, you do have autonomy to kind of do what you want. That's why you're elected as a school board member. That's why we have mayors, we have councils. But everybody just sort of bowed down to the federal government and did exactly what the Fed said. They didn't raise any questions. They thought that, if they raised a question, they would go to jail. We can see that raising questions really did not send anyone to jail. You look at states like Florida, they said, you know what, we're done with this nonsense. And they opened up. They did great. It was amazing. I want to say North Dakota did the same. They never had any shutdowns and nothing happened in North Dakota. And then they have the issue where kids were forced to wear a mask all day. And as a teacher, I'm going to tell you right now, none of the kids actually wore it properly. It was on their chin. It was on the floor. It was on the ear. So nobody was actually wearing it. And then some kids had asthma and breathing issues. And so it made it a little more difficult for them. I know I applied for a medical exemption. I was granted a medical exemption because I have a legitimate breathing problem that my doctor helped explain to the school board. And so they granted me an exemption, but then they also fired me over not wearing a mask, which is part of why I'm suing them, because I think I might have been the only teacher with that sort of exemption. But we were all forced to do something that we didn't want to do. And it's the same thing with there's the injection that's on the list that kids have to get. What are your thoughts on medical freedom? Are you just going to bow down to the feds? Or, I mean, what do you think? This is the last thing I want to talk about before we end.
Well, you're right. There were states around the country that resisted the federal mandate. And we have a Democrat governor who wanted to go along with that. So our state mandate was to wear a mask, kept kids out of school. And I disagreed with all of that. Putting kids in masks, I think, was like criminal. I just, I'm glad it's over, because that was the most horrible thing, to have elementary kids with a mask on all day long. And yeah, high school kids, they can, pull it down or wear it around their chin, or, they get reprimanded, they do this. But small children are more likely to just do what they're told and wear a mask all day. And I think it was harmful to them. So yeah, and as far as the COVID shot, I didn't get it myself. I don't believe in it. It's not a vaccine. It's like a flu shot. That should be strictly a personal decision. Parents should be able to decide for their children. So I do believe in our freedom to choose. Yes.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Pamela, I appreciate you coming on live and sharing this. This is going to be up. I hope people share this. If you're watching, please go ahead and share it right now. Write a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Connect with Pamela. She's running for District 2. Very strong conservative. I've heard some things about you. Just sounds like you're ready to work. That's what it sounds like.
Yes, I am. I'm excited. And
All
if I
right.
don't make it, I do plan to help the schools and the school board with whatever I can do.
Yeah. All right, Pamela. Well, thank you. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye.